Kirill Kaprizov just signed 17 million times 8 years, 136 million, and all I see on the internet is just basically, oh, this was a fleece for the Wild, like in a bad way. Every single person is saying Kaprizov fleeced the Wild, Kaprizov fleeced the Wild. Like, why would you pay a guy 17 million? Honestly, just like I defended Bedard for being a generational talent, I am here to defend Kirill Kaprizov and the Minnesota Wild, and I'm here to say that, in fact, it was not an overpay. In fact, I would argue that you should pay this kind of money. I think he's worth all the 17 mil, you know, maybe not all of it in an NHL term, but that's, you know, kind of the point. Kaprizov is worth to the Wild the full 20 mil. So basically, for those of you first of all, if you're new to the channel, subscribe. Welcome back to the second channel. It's been what, like 4 months. If you haven't seen me, I am TFD Hockey. I have my main channel where I make NHL content. Second channel, about to be way more active this year. And essentially, Kirill Kaprizov could have, or any player for that matter, the maximum salary that you can get in the NHL, if I'm not mistaken, is 20% of the cap space your team has. So you can play a player 1/5 of the amount, you know, that's available. However, the reason hockey teams don't do that is pretty obvious, but in hockey, it takes a full, you know, 23-man roster, you know, with scratches and stuff to get the job done. And I mean, just having a player making 20% of your cap leaves you in kind of a pickle to build out the rest of your roster competently. However, that is only true unless you have a player who is worth 20% of your cap. Like Connor McDavid, if he got paid 20% of the cap, I think it is worth it. Nathan McKinnon, Cale Makar. And while I will say, you know, Kirill Kaprizov, you know, probably not, especially, you know, being a winger and injury prone, you know, probably not in that category of players who are just, you know, just need to be paid that kind of money. I still think that the reason the Wild would pay him 17 mil, go up after he rejected 16 mil, is because the amount of stuff that Kaprizov brings to the Wild, such as, you know, like the amount of jersey sales that man has brought to the Minnesota Wild. Like anyone outside of Minnesota who has a Kaprizov jersey, a Wild jersey, I guarantee you it has Kaprizov. Nobody else. Except for in Slovakia, they probably have Marian Gaborik jerseys, but like that doesn't count. So like, yeah, but, and then also on top of that, Kaprizov is, you know, no offense to Gaborik, Eric Stahl, why am I saying Eric Stahl? I mean Mikko Koivu, you know, even Matt Boldy, but Kirill Kaprizov is the best player in Wild history, and honestly, no disrespect to Marian Gaborik because he was a beast. I didn't watch him that much growing up because, you know, he started playing before I was born. So I'm gonna be real, like, I have a bit of a bias, yes, but Kirill Kaprizov is the best Wild, and I don't think it's even close. Like, this is a man who could win the Hart Trophy one year, and I know Taylor Hall won the Hart Trophy, so it doesn't really count as a real trophy, but also at the same time, like, nowadays the league is so stacked that the MVP is for real, like, a superstar player. Like McKinnon, Kucherov, like, I highly doubt, you know, I could be proven wrong, but I highly doubt a player like Taylor Hall will ever win a Hart Trophy with how skilled hockey is getting, you know, even at the youth level and stuff. So, I mean, we'll see. Kaprizov can definitely win a Hart Trophy. He can definitely, you know, I don't know if he can win a Rocket because he is, you know, for such a great shooter and for a sniper, he has a tendency to pass a lot more than those other guys who are, you know, pure snipers, which, you know, isn't a bad thing, but he is definitely more of a 50 and 50 guy than like a 60 and 30, you know. But I think the main reason that people have a gripe on this contract other than the fact that you paid $17 million out of your cap space to one player, is the fact that Kaprizov, one, he's a winger, which, you know, unfairly to some extent, but it is true, they aren't as valuable as centers. And two, he is injury prone. He has shown that, you know, especially, you know, last year, especially the Wild were the 1 seed in the Western Conference, and then Kaprizov got injured and they just fell into mediocrity. I've yapped for way too long, and you know, let's just say this, I'm not coming in here with a script. I think it's fun, you know, it is nice to see people with a script. It is also more relatable, in my opinion, if there's just a guy talking, playing Chell, and yapping, you know, giving probably casual takes, probably getting ripped on, you know, by people watching, and still just giving these takes because they could be right. I try and look at these type of things from a very, I don't want to say neutral, because, you know, some stuff you just can't look at without a bias. However, I try and look at these kinds of situations as fairly as I can. And the first thing that I asked when I saw this, that Kaprizov rejected $16 million, was me asking myself, would I go up to 17 if I was the Wild GM? And pretty quickly I said yes to myself, obviously. I mean, I have no friends to talk to, so if you want to be friends, drop a sorry, that was cringe. I think it's not out of the realm of possibility that, like, Kirill Kaprizov, I wouldn't say he's worth 17 million. I'm going to start there. I wouldn't say, you know, if I was starting a team and they offered me Kaprizov at 17 million and then they offered me, you know, Mitch Marner at 12, it's like, is he that much better than Mitch Marner? I don't think so. 5 million is a big jump, especially at the top. And yeah, I wouldn't say he's 5 million better than Mitch Marner. I would say he's better. I would say he's probably, you know, the best or second best winger in the league. Definitely the best one who isn't, you know, old grandpa soon. But, like, I think where this comes into play, I think Elliot Friedman had a great point on the 32 Thoughts podcast about it. And it is the fact that Kaprizov is more valuable to the Minnesota Wild than any other team. It is just like how Connor McDavid, let's be real, will probably take less to sign with the Edmonton Oilers than he would if he hit the open market. He would probably take, maybe not the full 20%, but if Kaprizov took 17, I don't see why Connor McDavid could not get 20.8 by 7 or whatever the maximum contract you can offer somebody is. I don't see why teams wouldn't offer Connor McDavid that. I don't see why he wouldn't accept that. I also think that, you know, it's the same situation for Kaprizov, and in this case for the Wild, for the fact that Kaprizov is the best player in your franchise history. He is the first superstar in your franchise history, quite frankly. And superstars don't just grow on trees. Like, the Jets have had a rivalry with Minnesota for a while. You know, I'm a Jets fan. I don't think we've ever had a superstar, not even close to Kaprizov. I love Kyle Connor. I love Mark Scheifele, Blake Wheeler. You know, other than, you know, I wasn't alive to watch Teemu Selanne, so in my lifetime, or at least in like the Jets 2.0 lifetime, we've never had a superstar player. It is so rare, especially for, you know, even though it's the state of hockey, a smaller market team, no offense Minnesota, so hard for teams to sign players. For, like, I'm gonna keep using the Jets as an example. But when we signed Jonathan Toews, my mouth literally dropped. Pause. So, and also, you know, he got injured today, which kind of sucks. But that's for another video. Kirill Kaprizov is literally like he genuinely might have the keys to the city at some point. And also, if you look at the fact that the Wild have Brock Faber locked up at 9, Matt Boldy locked up at 7 by 7. Marco Rossi locked up at 5. This is all in millions, by the way. You know, they have Jesper Wallstedt, who's not a starter, so he can't command that much money. You know, Philip Gustafsson could command a lot, but I don't think he will, because again, he's one of those players that probably has more value. Or, I mean, like the Connor McDavid situation where he would probably take less to play in Minnesota than he could get on the open market. And, I mean, you have Zeev Boyum, you know, you have Joel Eriksson Ek, who's a great player. So, I mean, David Jiricek could be a hit. You know, you still have Brodin and Spurgeon and Middleton. So, like, if you have all these great contracts, all these great players, you have pretty decent depth, I will say. You don't have a great prospect pool, but it's not the worst. Like, it's probably worse now that Boyum's up in the NHL, probably. But it's not the worst contract. Like, it's not the worst prospect pool, sorry. So, you have a pretty good team. You know, you could probably pick up free agents that are born in Minnesota. I feel like there's a couple of those guys who would want to play for their hometown team. I feel like that's just the thing. And if you can get, right, another star. You don't even need another star. People hate on Matt Boldy. I think this kid is the truth. I think he's going to be a second superstar. Like a second, not a superstar, but like, he's not going to be Draisaitl, but he's not going to be Malkin. He's going to be, you know, a star. All-star, let's say. I genuinely think that if some people may think he's already there. I don't know about that, but his potential is crazy. Brock Faber and Zeev Boyum, that genuinely might be the best defense pair. It's like the best two-way defense pair in the league for like 10-15 years if they play together. Even if not, that is a psycho 1-2 punch. And like Jacob Middleton being your 5th best defenseman is legit a cheat code. David Jiricek being your 6th best defenseman with the potential he has if he hits, that is literally the best D-core in the league, and it's not even close. You have, you know, Gustafsson's great, and then you have Jesper Wallstedt, who if he hits is going to be an absolute dog. So you're set in the goaltending department. And sorry, it's so hard to talk while playing the game. It's actually, you know, you guys could try it for yourself. It's actually ridiculous, especially when you don't have a script. And, you know, you have all these great players. You have Rossi, you have Eriksson Ek, so you have a 1-2 center punch. Ogren, actually, you know, it looks like a decent player. That was an absolute snipe by Nico Sturm. You have Boldy, you have Zuccarello on the way, who, you know, he's old man Rivers at this point. Same with Tarasenko. And, you know, I mean, you have some decent depth like Hartman, Foligno, Trennan. You have you have Hinostroza, I think. So, you know, you have some depth, but you're not paying any of these guys like 10 mil. Yeah, Brock Faber's making a decent chunk of change. Boldy at 7, you know, like Marco Rossi at 5. These aren't small contracts, but the fact that like you're only paying one player. It's not like the core 4 Toronto thing where they're paying 4 of these guys. They got Kaprizov on a bargain at $9 million, which allowed them to sign guys like Matt Boldy, sign Brock Faber at $9 million, which looked like an overpay to a guy who played 1 season. All of a sudden, Brock Faber, yeah, it's not like he had an incredible, like, he may never be like a top 5, top 10 defenseman, but he genuinely could be a number 1 defenseman if he's not there already. And I think he's still got another year to go. So who knows what the ceiling is for Brock Faber. So you have these guys locked up. Yeah, you're going to have to pay Boyum. He's not going to come in anywhere close to, you know, 9-10 million, I don't think. So at the end of the day, you're only paying one guy, and that is the best player in your franchise history, 17 million, who, if he's healthy, can be a Hart Trophy winner, can be a Rocket Richard winner, can be an Art Ross winner. Like, supreme offensive talent. I don't know if I'm glazing Kaprizov or people are just underrating how good he is when he's healthy. But like the reason it's like another reason I think it's like okay, the Wild were literally the #1 team in the Western Conference with Kirill Kaprizov. Like I don't think it's like a coincidence that all of a sudden this, you know, generational player for your team's perspective, like he is literally once in the Minnesota Wild's lifetime. I don't think that kind of a player, you know, grows on trees. You've never had one in 25 years. You pay that kind of player. And I want to show one more thing, you know, I've kind of touched on it a lot, but let's check out their cap situation. If we go up to 8 and we go all the way up to 17, which is, you can't even do that in edit player. So 17 mil, it is a 1 million salary, he gets 18.1 million in the first 4 years on July 1st. There's a couple of, you know, other things in there. 136 million. Now let's check it out. For next year, you have all these deals, but then Jared Spurgeon comes off the books. That is 7.3 mil out of there, right? You have to re-sign Zeev Boyum, so that's a lot. Obviously, you're going to re-sign Spurgeon. That's going to come in at less money. Ryan Hartman is going to be off the books. This is after 1 year of having Kaprizov. So you go 2 years in the future. Now you only have Middleton, who signed at a reasonable contract. Eriksson Ek signed at a very good contract. Boldy, a steal. Faber, a steal. Kaprizov, you know, not a steal, but I wouldn't say Faber's a steal. But, you know, you have these 5 guys. Yeah, Kaprizov, you know, makes it more than Faber and Boldy combined. But that's like 34 mil right there. Wait, let me actually lock in here. 17 plus 8 is 25, plus 7 is 32, plus 5 is 37, plus 4 is 41. So it's about 42 mil between these 5 guys, which seems like a lot, but that is less than half the cap, and these are 5 of your best players, and I'm not going to lie, there's a chance they trade Jacob Middleton. But you have Boyum, he's going to get locked up pretty good. Brodin, you have to imagine it's going to be somewhere around here. But guys like Foligno, Trenin, Hartman, you know, these guys who are just making a ton of money just to, you know, be out there doing cardio, they aren't going to get paid that much. And if you look at, you know, Philip Gustafson, I don't think he'll want 9. I think it'll be somewhere, you know, Anthony Stolar just signed for 3.75. Trying to think of some other goalie contracts that were literally just signed. I think, you know, Swayman got 8, something like that. Philip Gustafson's probably going to be around there, 8 times 8, something like that. That is 8 million down the drain, unless you want to trade Gustafson and roll with Jesper Wallstedt, my bad. You know, he is a good goalie, but he has to show, you know, that promise realized at some point, right? You can't just bank on his potential the whole time. You still have David Jiricek coming up, you know, who, you know, in real life he probably doesn't have the elite potential anymore, but you can definitely replace one of these $6 million contracts with like a solid, you know, Jacob Middleton type contract. They also got 14 million in relief with the Ryan Suter deals, and the fact that they had Kaprizov on 9 meant they could sign Boldy, you know, sign all of these guys so that they can pay Kaprizov. And look at this, like 34 million, like you have 17 million here, it says. That is talking about this free agency. So you have $34 million in 2028. Yeah, you have a couple players locked up. When you get here, you have Boldy, Eriksson Ek, you know, Brock Faber, and I mean, this is when you have $54 million with no bad contracts. So personally, final verdict, is the Kirill Kaprizov contract an overpay? No. 108 points, 96 points, 56 points, 9 points in 6 games in the playoffs, best player in your franchise's history, locked up for 8 more years. Yeah, this could age horribly. He could be 36 and be ass. But with the way the cap is going up, with the way these players are making so much money now, I don't think it's an overpay. Let me know what you think in the comments, and I'll see you guys in the next video.